The ocean has hidden many secrets, but none as enormous as the Megalodon. Picture a world between 16 and 3.6 million years ago, when the Miocene and Pliocene seas were in full transition. Currents were reorganizing, surface waters were getting colder and more productive, kelp forests were spreading like factories of life, and the continental shelves were boiling with creatures. Baleen whales were smaller and more diverse than today. Sperm whales with fearsome teeth plied their migratory routes, and moving through those shadows, the king of the depths patrolled, the Megalodon, a colossal shark that crossed oceans in the wake of its prey. It was a young, dynamic, ferocious world where a single migration could upset the balance of an entire ecosystem. And yet, if the Megalodon seemed like the perfect hunter, why did it fall? The climate turned erratic, prey changed in size and distribution, and a smaller but efficient rival began to challenge its throne. There was no final thunderclap. The fall was silent, a sum of competition, hunger, and an ocean that no longer played in its favor. When giants go hungry, catastrophe makes no sound. They simply cease to be. On this journey, we'll follow its tracks along the coasts, across migratory routes, and the scars in ancient bones. We'll trace its origins and lineage, its anatomy and hunting strategy, its prey and rivals, its rise to dominance, and the causes of its disappearance. We'll dismantle myths, weigh the evidence, and understand how the death of one shark could clear the way for the largest whales of all time. Come with me to the ocean. We're going to look into the eyes of a ghost and hear what its teeth still shout from the sea floor. Let's dive back not a year or a century, but millions of years, to the Middle and Late Miocene, then forward into the Pliocene. Geologic clocks place us between roughly 3.6 million and 16 million years ago. The planet is different. Continents are readjusting, thermal gradients are sharpening, the poles are banking cold, and thermohaline circulation is rewiring the nutrient highways. In temperate seas, vast kelp forests anchor sediments and turbocharge productivity. Continental shelves turn into nurseries for fish, invertebrates, and marine mammals. Primitive rorquals, mid-sized baleen whales, sturdy delphinids, and predatory sperm whales weave an unmatched trophic mosaic. In that setting, the Megalodon thrives, a cosmopolitan transoceanic superpredator able to patrol coasts and the open sea, to cross current lines, and to tune its course to the migratory breathing of its prey. For decades, people repeated that its end came around 2.6 million years ago, at the Pliocene-Pleistocene boundary, a tidy coincidence with the onset of the strongest glaciations. However, closer scrutiny of the fossil record suggests a different timeline. Multiple marine basins lack reliable remains above 3.6 million years, pushing their extinction back into the heart of the Pliocene. This difference isn't a technicality. If Megalodon was gone before the Pleistocene glaciations began, its decline ties more to Pliocene ecosystem restructuring, with changes in currents, productivity, and the makeup of baleen whales, than to a single climatic blow. So when the great northern snows stepped onto the stage, the giant actor had already exited, leaving only its teeth to tell the tale. Sharks are cartilaginous fishes, and their skeleton, made of cartilage, fossilizes poorly. Their teeth, by contrast, are mineralized and survive millions of years. From Megalodon, we have, above all, teeth. An enamel library we must learn to read. Large, triangular, with fine serrations, the inner face slightly convex, the outer face flat or faintly concave. A broad V-shaped root, evolutionary knives made to slice flesh and fat on an industrial scale. Because sharks replace tooth rows throughout life, each individual produces tens of thousands of pieces. That's why the species shows up in sediments across half the world. Thanks to that abundance, the megatooth saga can be reconstructed as an evolutionary staircase, from otodus forms in the early Paleogene, through intermediate species with progressive changes in size and serrations, culminating, by current consensus, in otodus Megalodon. For years, it was placed alongside the modern great white, in Carcharodon and the family Lamnidae, because of the similarity of their triangular crowns. Today, we understand that's evolutionary convergence. Distinct lineages arriving at similar functional solutions when facing large, slippery prey. The conclusion is crucial for any reconstruction. The great white is not its direct descendant. They share an order, not a family, which prevents us from scaling up a white shark to draw Megalodon. Teeth also speak to behavior. Nearly complete dental arches show clear heterodonty. The anterior teeth, taller and more symmetrical, seem built for deep initial cuts. The lateral teeth, slanted, for tearing and holding. Fine serrations boost efficiency when slicing fibrous tissues and layers of blubber. Moreover, in some coastal formations, the abundance of small megalodon teeth suggests nurseries. Warm, shallow, productive waters where females birthed large pups that could grow with lower predation risk, a behavior we see today in many viviparous shark species. The recurrence of these patterns through time indicates that certain strategies, few offspring, very large at birth, early coastal refuge, juvenile dispersal, are stable solutions for apex predators. Let's pair the time step ladder with a continuous story. In the Paleocene and Eocene, the oceans hosted early otodus lineages with large teeth lacking the fine serrations that later became emblematic. As the Eocene gives way to the Oligocene, tooth edges show nascent denticles. Size increases, roots shift in proportion, and the full arcade starts to resemble a cutter of macro-predators. In the early to middle Miocene, the lineage expands. Along temperate coasts, ever larger, more serrated teeth appear, pointing to growing specialization on marine mammals. The late Miocene and Pliocene mark the zenith, and then the decline. Megalodon reigns in many seas, but the board is shifting, currents are being rearranged, rivals are multiplying, and the menu is changing. Around 3.6 million years ago, the pages of the record stop showing its signature. The staircase has no miraculous leaps. It shows a steady trend, an evolutionary experiment that peaked and ended when the stage stopped supporting it. But what did it truly look like? The inevitable question is size. Early estimates extrapolated total length from the height of a single anterior tooth, using great white proportions. Over time, the approach was refined. Today, researchers prefer summing crown widths from near-complete dentitions to avoid positional bias, comparing with datasets from living lamniforms, and, when the record is kind, using vertebral columns with calcified centra to add ontogenetic anchors. The conservative consensus gives adult lengths above 15 meters, with plausible maxima around 18 to 20 meters in exceptional individuals. Some models that propose a slightly more slender body raise the reasonable ceiling to roughly 24 meters in extreme cases. Not every megalodon was a record colossus. As with modern whales, most clustered in the middle ranges with few giants. Weight is no less elusive. Everything depends on the body model assumed. Extrapolations based on a robust great white yield tens of tons. If the body were more elongated, mass drops for the same length. But we're still talking about an animal on the scale of a small whale. The point isn't to nail a precise figure, but to fix the order of magnitude. An outsized mouth, powerful musculature, and reserves to sustain long migrations and explosive ambushes. As for bite, large modern lamniforms exceed 18,000 newtons. Scaling that force isn't linear, but models converge on Megalodon, generating far higher pressures and, more decisive still, delivering them with a serrated edge optimized to open deep channels in flesh and fat and to sever key structures. Its tactic, inferred by analogy and by fossil bite marks, likely combined a rise from below, an initial impact that destabilizes or fractures, and one or two bites that cut vital tissue or disable the prey's movement. Inside, the engine was thermal. Like other large lamniforms, it kept regions of the body, red muscles, viscera, brain, warmer than the water thanks to heat exchangers, while its great size favored gigantothermy. That combo improves endurance and cruising efficiency, enables short bursts and supports tolerance to variable temperatures, the passport of an ocean migrant. As for appearance, we have no skin or pigments, but the logic of vertical camouflage suggests counter-shading, dark back, pale belly. The pectoral and dorsal fins must have been large and stabilizing, with falcate shapes tuned for sweeping turns and lift at speed. The tail, heterocercal, would work as a power rudder for sudden ascents. The essential caution is not to confuse its silhouette with the great whites. Different family and ecology at another scale allow for a megalodon more long-lined than old models suggest. Thus did it terrorize its world. The Miocene and Pliocene seas were a jigsaw of upwellings, fertile shelves, migratory corridors, and kelp forests that turned light and water movement into a symphony of productivity. In that web, small to mid-sized baleen whales, delphinids, and predatory sperm whales were key items on Megalodon's menu. Marine mammals offer something fish rarely match: concentrated fat, dense blubber, the perfect fuel for a high-expenditure predator. Megalodon would also have attacked large turtles, pinnipeds, rays, and even other sharks, and taken carrion when chance allowed. A dead cetacean is too rich an energy bonanza to ignore. We have direct evidence of these interactions: whale bones with clean, deep cuts, separation marks consistent with fine serrations, ribs and scapulae with grooves that healed, signs of failed attacks on victims that survived long enough for bone to recover, and unhealed vertebrae hinting at lethal ambushes. In tropical and temperate coasts, deposits rich in small megalodon teeth alongside coastal fishes point to nurseries. Shallow, warm waters with easy prey, where females birthed already large pups, on the order of 2 to 3 meters, minimizing risk. Across space, the species was cosmopolitan. Its teeth appear on several continents, and the geography of finds, combined with isotope models and size data, sketches an animal used to crossing seas, moving with the seasons, and seeking the pulse of nutrients and prey that marks continental margins. It wasn't alone. In its time, it shared the seas with macroraptorial sperm whales, relatives of Leviathan, capable of hunting large prey, and with lamniforms of notable size. As the Pliocene advanced, the great white lineage gained ground in temperate waters, with a flexible strategy that included pinnipeds and small cetaceans. Geochemistry offers a clue to this collision. Zinc isotopes in dental enamel indicate comparable trophic levels in some locales, suggesting dietary overlap. And when two apex predators chase similar prey in the same spaces, ecological tension rises. The one that needs less energy to function holds a quiet but decisive advantage. But why did Megalodon dominate for millions of years? Megalodon's power lay in a mouth and dentition that could fragment enormous prey quickly, shrinking handling time, and with it, the risk of losing a meal to opportunistic scavengers. Its energy strategy, focused on fat-rich marine mammals, meant each successful capture more than paid the costs of travel and thermoregulation. Its transoceanic mobility, fueled by endurance physiology, let it abandon poor areas and gamble on more productive corridors. On a planet of shifting currents, that spatial plasticity is an insurance policy. Its life history: few pups, very large at birth, rapid early growth, late maturity, maximizes individual survival in relatively stable environments, and its attack pattern, rise from below, impact, slice, is efficient, repeatable, and devastating. Moreover, the presence of nurseries implies structured spatial behavior, birthing zones, routes between these and feeding areas, and a use of the seascape reminiscent of modern pelagic lamniforms. Together, this forms the recipe for a wide-ranging superpredator that exploited an ocean rich in medium, abundant cetaceans. And maybe, at this point in the video, you're wondering how we know all this. Reconstructing a giant from fragmentary fossils demands an arsenal of tools. Dental morphometrics compares widths, heights, angles, and serrations across thousands of teeth to infer positions in the jaw and tie them to body size estimates based on patterns in living sharks. The rare columns of vertebral centra allow estimates of length and age, thanks to reading growth bands, and point to long-lived individuals with decades of life as expected in apex predators. Stable isotopes provide the chemistry of behavior. Oxygen helps infer temperatures and habitats, carbon, trophic sources, zinc, relative trophic levels. crucial for comparing contemporary predators. Bite marks in bones are petrified crime scenes, groove width, depth, serration spacing. All of it helps identify culprits and sometimes reconstruct the sequence of attack. Biomechanical models simulate bite forces and jaw stresses from allometric comparisons with living lamniforms, constraining what Megalodon could cut and how efficiently. And the geographic and stratigraphic distribution of teeth, where they appear and in which layers, reveals the species' range and, by their systematic absence above certain horizons, the timing of its disappearance. When all these lines converge, the portrait ceases to be a sketch and becomes a figure. Like all ancient predators, the Megalodon went extinct. Extinctions rarely trace back to a single spectacular cause. They're usually a cocktail of pressures that combined outstrip a species' capacity to respond. In Megalodon's case, the plot begins with a change to the menu. Miocene baleen whales were smaller and more diverse. In the Pliocene, that diversity is reshuffled and reduced in some clades, altering the average size and availability of optimal prey. At the same time, ocean circulation readjusts. Thermal gradients and upwelling patterns shift in place or intensity, and zones that were once cornucopias can become less reliable. All this forces more kilometers per prey item, and that added cost bites into the energy budget of a gigantic body. Meanwhile, smaller, more efficient competitors, like the great white lineage, expand in temperate waters, with flexible diets and lower requirements. Some predatory odontocetes hold robust niches. Evidence of trophic overlap suggests that in certain scenarios, Megalodon and great whites competed directly. Demographically, Megalodon's life history, few pups, late maturity, becomes a heel of Achilles. Just a handful of bad seasons, with scarce prey and heavy competition, can push effective reproduction below replacement. There's no need to imagine mass die-offs. It's enough that fewer pups are born, that they grow more slowly, or fail to survive juvenile bottlenecks. Thus, silently, the population contracts. By the Pliocene, 3.6 million years ago, we no longer see this giant in several basins. The ocean carried on, but with a different cast. Even so, Megalodon has starred in many legends. First, no, Megalodon isn't still alive, hiding in abyssal trenches. A predator weighing tens of tons would leave an unmistakable trail. Reliable sightings, carcasses, fresh teeth, trophic signals in modern food webs. Besides, its preferred ecology favored epipelagic and mesopelagic waters near productive margins, not permanent residents in the abyssal dark. Nor is it true that the modern great white is its direct offspring. The resemblance in teeth is functional convergence, not close kinship, and Megalodon belongs to Otodontidae, not Lamnidae. Lastly, those giant display jaws aren't exact molds of real individuals. Many are composites with teeth from different specimens to complete idealized arches, useful for exhibits, but they demand interpretive caution. Busting these myths doesn't shrink its grandeur. If anything, it leaves us with a more interesting scientific creature, nuanced, and with a story that gets clearer as we add data. Megalodon's disappearance didn't magically free whales to become giants. Rather, both trajectories diverged under the ocean's new rules. In the Pliocene, and especially the Pleistocene, plankton dynamics and seasonal productivity favored filter feeders capable of traveling thousands of kilometers to exploit brief krill blooms. With enormous bodies, colossal mouths, and pleated tongues, balenopterid whales optimized machinery to gulp millions of tiny prey in minutes. In that world, the top of the trophic heap belongs to giant filter feeders, not hunters of macro prey. Megalodon's role as top scavenger and pruner of medium-sized cetaceans is shared among orcas, great whites, and other carnivores. Mega carcasses remain islands of nutrients, but their origin and fate change. The lesson is clear. Oceans recrown their champions as the rules of energy and flow change. Imagine the eastern Pacific coast, what is now Peru or Chile, with marine sediments rich in cetacean remains, and megalodon teeth scattered like signposts of ancient hunts. Ribs with cuts betraying an attempt to open the ribcage. Vertebrae with unhealed grooves telling of final ambushes. Bitten phalanges suggesting efforts to immobilize the tail fin. Cross in your mind to the Western Atlantic, to fossil mines in North Carolina or Florida, where whole layers hold teeth of different sizes and degrees of wear, some co-occurring with ancestral great white teeth, witnesses to faunal handoffs throughout the Pliocene. In the Caribbean, Panama's Gatun Formation displays an alphabet of juvenile teeth, coastal fish and rays, as if the shoreline had been a seasonal nursery. And in Europe, from Belgium to Malta and Spain, scattered finds confirm the predator's cosmopolitan reach. These aren't isolated postcards. Together they compose an ecological biography. Megalodon hunted, migrated, bred and competed on an oceanic scale. To better grasp Megalodon's singularity, it helps to compare it with today's rulers of the sea. The great white, at 5 to 6 meters for large individuals, shares vertical ambush tactics and regional endothermy, but lacks the scale, and thus the energy budget, of its distant precursor. Its dietary flexibility lets it weather productivity slumps more easily. The orca, with social intelligence and cooperative hunting, plays a different game. It pursues, coordinates and teaches, and its cultural plasticity opens niches a solitary hunter doesn't exploit. The sperm whale, the largest living carnivore, rockets into the depths after giant cephalopods. Its lifestyle isn't a reflection of Megalodon, but another solution for sustaining a giant body in the modern ocean. Together, these comparisons show there's no perfect modern analog for Megalodon. Its blend of size, macro-predatory diet and solitary strategy is so far unrepeatable. Dawn breaks over a temperate shelf. Kelp forests sway with the swell. Farther out, the upwelling line draws a boundary and color. At 60 meters, where the light greens and shadows lengthen, a shape glides with barely a ripple. It's Megalodon. Blood warmer than the surrounding water feeds red muscles working unhurriedly. Its sense of smell reads invisible trails of lipids and hemoglobin. Its ampullae of Lorenzini detect the faint electricity of distant swimming muscles. Two juvenile rorquals, separated by chance or curiosity, lag just behind the group. The shark traces a wide arc beneath them, as if sketching a smile in the water, and accelerates. The first contact isn't necessarily a bite. It's a controlled impact, delivering the inertia of a many-ton body at the right angle. The prey shudders, its form comes apart, then comes the slash. Serrations bite the flank, blubber parts, and blood draws a dense wake. The predator pulls away for an instant, avoids the desperate tail beat, lets physiology do its work. It returns, cuts again, this time near the tail fin to rob the prey of thrust. The rorqual gives in. For hours, Megalodon will feed in passes, choosing the most energy-rich cuts. The scraps that fall will feed fish, crabs and worms, turning one death into a festival of life on the bottom. By late afternoon, when wind wrinkles the surface and opportunists close in, the shark will head offshore, saving energy in a zigzag through layers of different temperatures, following chemical cues that to us are pure poetry. That's how its days run. Long crossings, windows of abundance, quick feasts, prudent retreats. That's how a giant's budget works. In a sea that never stops moving, Megalodon was, for millions of years, the highest wave. It sliced flesh and silence, etched scars in bones and sediments, spread energy from mega carcasses to worms and bottom fish, and carved behaviors into prey that learned to migrate, to group, to flee along paths of light. When the ocean changed its tempo, that colossal shadow faded, and the throne passed to other strategies. But its teeth, picked from beaches across half the world, are still pages of a book written in enamel. Learning to read them is to understand that evolutionary greatness isn't a lifetime title. It's a contract the environment can renegotiate. Theirs was cancelled 3.6 million years ago. Ours, for now, asks us to listen. And if you return with me to that Pliocene shelf edge and peer into the gloom, you might still sense it coming. It doesn't roar. It raises no spray. It only cuts. Then it's gone. The story ends, but the echo of its bite keeps vibrating in Earth's memory.